and welcome to Legal Affairs. My name is Diamond Liddy, and I'm the public defender of the 19th Judicial Circuit. We are joined today with two wonderful ladies, one that came all the way from Tallahassee to be with us today. Welcome.
Thank you.
Is it colder up there? Oh, yeah.
Much colder.
Yes, yes. And Theda Roberts.
Right.
And then we have Michelle Simpson, who is our local celebrity today. And welcome to both of you. Let's start. So the viewers know we're going to be talking about some very cool things that the Department of Juvenile Justice are doing for our kids, locally, statewide, etc. But before we do that, let's talk about you both for just a few minutes. Theda Roberts, again, lives in Tallahassee, and she is our statewide civil citation coordinator. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. I am.
Tell us, and then I want some kind of background about you, but tell us, what the heck does a civil citation coordinator do?
I travel the state working with public defenders, state attorneys, law enforcement agencies to get civil citation up and operating in the areas where it's not, as well as to improve areas that are already implemented so that we get more youth served in the civil citation arena. And
define for us, because you know, us in the criminal justice system of course know, but what is civil citation? You know, how does a child get a civil citation versus getting how does it work?
Well, it's very exciting. Civil citation has been around for about 20 years.
Right.
But in 2011, it became the governor's priority initiative to revise how we serve youth. And his first initiative was strengthening those civil citation laws. So it went from becoming an opportunity in some communities to an opportunity in every community. And basically, civil citation is for those first-time, non-serious misdemeanors. When they first come in contact with law enforcement, that officer has the choice to either arrest that youth or to issue a civil citation. And the civil citation has immediate sanctions. Takes about 90 days to go through the program. And when the youth is successful, then they have absolutely no criminal history record.
Period.
Yeah. Yes. And if they're unsuccessful, that original arrest paperwork is sent back through the state attorney's office for processing.
Which is fabulous.
It is fabulous. It gives that kids that opportunity.
No, and that, you know, obviously people in the community, you know, want children, because there have been so many heinous, serious crimes committed by juveniles. They want them to have consequences for their acts, but we don't want to put them so far in the criminal justice system that there's no way out, and they're going to be there forever because now they have a criminal record, they can't get into the Army, they can't go to school, blah, 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 you know, whatever. So, Michelle, tell us about you. You are tell us your title.
I am the reform specialist for Circuit 19. And basically the reform specialist position is a new position that was just created this year. Well, 2013 really.
Right.
There was a lot of changes made due to the roadmap to system excellence, and the secretary felt like having a person in each circuit to help with those changes was necessary. And so I heeded the call and I became the reform specialist. And here in Circuit 19, our two biggest priorities have been civil citation and electronic monitoring, and making sure that we're utilizing both of those programs effectively.
So kind of the focus has been alternatives to serious sanctions. I mean, obviously these are all sanctions, and that's something we need to make sure the public is aware of. These aren't giveaway programs, these aren't slap on the hands, they are immediate sanctions, immediate, you know, letting the child know this is wrong, don't do it again, but we're going to give you a chance, and if you take it, you're okay.
And you know, 60% of the kids who come into the juvenile justice system through that first-time misdemeanor never come back again.
I mean, which is extraordinary, which is great.
Absolutely. But when they're arrested, those 60% all have that record. And that keeps them out of sometimes the military, educational institutions, certain jobs. So it's quite important not to have that record.
Well, you know, and it's funny. Of course, I've been in the criminal justice system all my life, and thank goodness not in many forms, not a defendant so far. But anyway, you know, we've seen the pendulum swing, and you know, you just, if you've been in the system long enough, you know that everybody that gets arrested, whether it be a juvenile or an adult, aren't necessarily bad to the bone, aren't necessarily never going to be anything, never going to come out of it. They're just destined for failure. As you say, only 40%, 60% are never going to even have a problem. Let's talk about how long have you been with the Department of Juvenile Justice?
I came over from the governor's office in 2011.
Oh, okay.
Prior to that, I was analyzing juvenile justice issues.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Michelle?
I've been with the department 18 years.
Yeah, I knew that there was some length of time here.
Yes, prior to taking this position, I had 2 other positions with the department.
Well, you know, and then I want to talk about this roadmap to excellence and that kind of thing too. But so the people watching understand. Tell me in a nutshell, kind of. I don't know if most people know that the Department of Juvenile Justice, which oversees pretty much everything that affects juveniles, is headed by one person, appointed by the governor. Am I right?
Yes.
And the new secretary, what is
Wansley Walters.
Right, and he's pretty jazzed about his position. Isn't
She is.
Oh, is she? Okay, okay. And she, I mean, all kinds of new things are coming out, and
Absolutely.
and, you know, I'm pretty excited about some of the initiatives and stuff. But so this woman appointed by the governor oversees you all ultimately, and pretty much everything that the department does, from criminal sanctions to
Prevention.
Prevention.
Absolutely. And the reason the governor brought her on board is because she had reformed the juvenile justice system in Miami-Dade and had a great track record. Civil citation was part of that, as were other things as well. And when he brought her on board, he tasked her to make our juvenile justice system the best in the nation.
Yeah.
And as a state, we had been serving kids for years in ways that actually made their outcomes worse.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and again, back to the pendulum, you know, yes, there has to be consequences, there has to be punishment, but there for a while, and again, because I've been involved for so long, that pendulum swung to where, I mean, you know, there was no discretion, there was no, you know, it was punishment, punishment, punishment. We forgot about rehabilitation, and that's just, we got to, you know, we had to come back to the middle.
We do. And with civil citation, it's that first time delinquent act.
Right.
And it's typically...
Yeah, give us some examples. What's you know, because
it could be a schoolyard fight.
Which is a misdemeanor, which you can go to, yeah, exactly.
It could be shoplifting a necklace or some makeup.
Right.
You know, it could be as that first time, that minor marijuana usage.
Right.
And the thing is that most of us did those things when we were young.
Right.
Yeah. So, and we've all grown up, most of us, to be responsible adults.
Right.
So this gives that youth the opportunity not to get arrested. I think that in today's world, we arrest those kids more than we did when I was growing up.
Oh, there's no
Absolutely.
question. Yeah, because, well, back in the day, you know, I mean, even for when you were 19, 20, that, you know, in the adult world, not in the juvenile world, it was still more forgiving, if you will. The officer would talk to you, call your mom and daddy, you know, that kind of thing. But it's there, and I understand the zero tolerance in all areas, but it can go too far, especially when we're talking about children.
Absolutely, it can. And let me share with you that for the civil citation youth, we have a recidivism rate of 6%.
Which is extraordinary.
Extraordinary. It's the best that we can offer in the Department of Juvenile Justice.
Wow.
And we're right now in the process of evaluating our first year of data after the revised legislation. So we started collecting data in July of 2011. So we're looking at maybe a 4% recidivism rate.
Wow.
We'll firm that up in the next week.
That is,
It's exciting.
That's way cool. Yay, go 19th Circuit. Well, Michelle, tell us, give us a nutshell Reader's Digest version of what you do as a reform specialist.
Well, I've been tasked with two major things, as I mentioned before, civil citation and electronic monitoring.
Right.
For civil citation, I have been in the community talking to law enforcement officers about civil citation, trying to encourage them to utilize the program more. Here at Circuit 19, we do have 3 separate programs.
Right.
We have two that are in Martin County. One's run by Stewart PD, and another is run by Martin County Health and Human Services. And we have another program in St. Lucie County, which covers both Indian River and Okeechobee County as well. And all 3 of those programs are up and running and ready for kids. And they're not utilized as much as we would like them to be utilized.
And explain the programs?
Well, the programs usually...
The civil... Okay.
The civil citation program would begin with an assessment. And during that assessment, the counselor at the program would try to find out, are there anything going on with those kids? Are they having some family problems? Could they benefit from family counseling? Could they benefit from some substance abuse education? I mean, we're talking about low-risk kids, so most of these kids are, definitely going to school and predominantly doing what their parents have asked, but, teenage years are hard.
Well, and this is, what you're talking about now, Michelle, is after the law enforcement officer has made the decision not to arrest, to issue a civil citation.
Yes.
That's the first thing that happens.
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
I think it's within 14 days they actually do that assessment. So the big piece of civil citation is that it's an immediate consequence.
Right.
So within 14 days of committing the crime, that the child and the parent are in the office with the counselor completing an in-depth assessment. And those assessments usually take between an hour and a half and 3 hours, depending on what's going on with that particular kid. And at the end of that assessment, the counselor assigns them some tasks that need to be completed within a set time frame. I think it's usually about 45 days. And during that time, they're writing essays. Maybe they're checking in weekly with their school resource officer, completing community service hours.
Okay.
If there's counseling needs, they, of course, are trying to get them plugged into counseling. And some families are better than others about getting plugged into counseling,
Sure.
and so they're trying to hold them accountable to make sure that that's happening. Most often, we want to make sure that we improve this child's functioning so that we don't see them in the criminal justice system again.
Well, what do you think, Michelle, without putting you on the hot seat or pointing fingers, what do you think has been the biggest impediment for not getting more youth involved in these programs?
Because law enforcement does 100% of the referral, I don't know that they're always thinking about civil citation being an option.
It's just maybe that they're educated but aren't used to it yet. Could that be it?
Yes.
Okay.
And, I think in the heat of the moment, maybe they're thinking about writing up the paperwork and they're not thinking, oh, well, this is a first-timer. I should try civil citation.
Right.
They're maybe thinking, I want to finish this report so I can get on to the next thing on my list.
Yeah, sure. So you're tasked with basically educating and promoting this alternative so that they do think about it and again, I'm sure giving law enforcement the benefit in all 4 counties because they do a wonderful job.
Yes,
but,
they do.
They do get busy. They do have so much on their plate.
That's
I can see, 5 years from now, that I think you're not going to have an issue. Right now, when it's new, it's
a new way of thinking.
Right, right. Now, is there legally, let's say, the officer arrests the juvenile, does not do the civil citation? Is there a way to unarrest them and give them a civil citation? If there isn't, is there? Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No.
So there's no way that a defense lawyer, public defender, whatever, a teacher, whatever, can call and say, Officer Smith, why'd you arrest him? He's never been in trouble. He's a good boy. I don't know what got into him. I think he had bad Cheerios this morning, and can we do something? It's, you know.
That's why the system that's in place down in Indian River County Sheriff's Office is so good. Explain that.
At the Indian River County Sheriff's Office, anytime a juvenile is arrested, that paperwork is processed through one particular point person in the agency who checks to see, is this child eligible for civil citation?
Really? Okay.
And so at that level, every single juvenile arrest affidavit is reviewed. If it's found to be eligible for civil citation, then they have an officer who's tasked with educating the family about civil citation and getting, if the victim's agreement is required, trying to access that agreement from the victim so that the kids can participate. That process just began in October or November. And so it's a new process. We're still working out the kinks, but I'm very excited that that's going to definitely improve our utilization considerably.
But I think the other sheriffs would be open to that for sure.
I would love to see that.
You know, because that is a kind of a clearinghouse mechanism.
Now, in Broward County, the sheriff has determined that every eligible youth will get civil citation.
Whoa. Wow.
Yeah, and their numbers have skyrocketed.
Yeah, that's pretty sweeping.
Yeah, it is sweeping.
Didn't we have a new sheriff in Broward County?
Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But when you think about it, you know, if you take a youth and you have the option of arrest or civil citation, you can give that youth a 6% chance of recidivism, or you can give them a 12 or 18%
Well, that's
chance.
what I was going to ask. You know, I know the numbers in adult court, you know, like that, but so in the juvenile arena, the average recidivism rate for someone arrested without civil citation or any help like that is at 12 to 18%?
It's 12% for that youth that goes in a diversion program, which is basically the same services they would get if they had got the civil citation.
Right.
And it's 17% if they go into the probation world.
Wow. Yeah, and that's high.
It is
high. And if you can reduce it by two-thirds, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's quite exciting. In fact, I truly believe that through civil citation, that in 5 years, we're going to have a healthier community because we're addressing the concerns that are causing that youth to act out at the very first stage.
Right.
And the family issues as well.
Well, and I don't want to go into detail why or anything. It's really not important. But I've been very involved in reading and becoming an expert, if you will, as much as I can on the differences between the juvenile and the adult brain. I mean, we have ignored that science. This isn't voodoo. This isn't some public defender, defense lawyer saying that, juveniles are different, blah, blah, blah. This is the AMA. This is the American Psychological, Academy. This
Absolutely.
is the Supreme Court of the United States of America. Kids are different. And if you give them a little time, if you give them a little help, if you give them a little chance, they're going to mature. They're not, the impulse control will be there.
Yeah.
The ability to reason, et cetera, et cetera. And we've got to make the country, our state, our community aware of that.
When I first heard that, I was so skeptical.
Oh, sure.
Absolutely.
Well, I know people are watching this saying, "Oh, well, but it's
true.
It's not. It's not some liberal person saying, "Oh, God, give them a break, give them a chance." This is science,
And it's proven that during those years from 12 to 25-ish, the brain amazingly grows in the way that it can receive signals and process those signals, so that by the time they're 25, then they are considered an adult. But
25, and we're not talking. That's the other thing we need to point out. It's not. A 12-year-old fits into this category. Until the age of 25, medical scientific research has shown the juvenile brain is different. And I think the best example that I heard the other day was in a presentation about this, where the 13-year-old, 14-year-old comes in and says, "Dad, I want the keys to the car. and he looks at him and he says, what do you mean? He says, well, I've been driving with you for years, Dad. I know how to put the key in. I know how to turn it. I've seen you do the signals, the steering wheel, and everything. Mm-hmm. But the government, you know, all of us agree you can't because kids are different. They're not there yet.
They're much more apt to take risk.
Exactly. You know, and same with getting married. The government has, but then when we, as people involved with juveniles, say, you're right, government, you're right, the state, juveniles are different, so let's give alternatives, then all of a sudden it's different. No, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah. But you know, it's very compelling research, and it's exciting.
And another thing to think about is that civil citation is much more cost effective.
Oh yeah, well that's the other thing, and yes. I got off on a tangent. You're right. You know, talk about that. I mean,
it's been estimated to cost about $400 to do a civil citation for a youth, 4 or 5, and more like $5,000 to send them once they're arrested.
Oh, exactly.
Yes.
Because then you have a public defender appointed, and the prosecutor, and then the judge is involved, and the courtroom time, and the clerk that is in the courtroom, and you know, you've got all.
Yeah, and the deeper they go into our system, of course, by the time you get into residential, you're really spending a lot of money.
That's true. Yeah.
And if you can avoid that by keeping the kid out of our system, you know, Michelle talked about the assessment. One of the things that assessment does for us, not only pinpoint what's going on in their lives, but helps us identify those kids that are going to be repeat offenders.
Right.
And specifically address their concerns to try to keep them out of our system. Right. Without that civil citation, that youth very well may spiral down through our system to residential. And we've seen that happen in the past.
Right.
We want to avoid that whenever we can.
And that it's, you know, that's the group, the repeat offenders that will end up at some point in the adult system, and we don't want to see that. If we can get them diverted early on, oh my gosh, look, you know, forget about the 400 versus, you know, for civil citation versus the punishment and detention, etc. It's the long-term, you know, 7 other offenses, and the
absolutely,
you know, so
yeah. And you know, we realize there will always be deep end. There'll always be kids in that deep end. What we're trying to do very strongly is reduce the amount of kids in that deep end by providing front-end services, which are much more cost-effective and effective for the kids.
And the new secretary, I assume you both met her.
She's amazing.
Yeah, well, that's what I keep hearing, you know, and so this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg of some of the innovative ideas she has.
The electronic monitoring is part of the effort to keep kids out of detention.
Right.
Because we know once they cross the detention door, the odds are they're coming back.
Right. Well, talk about that. We, believe it or not, we're all, you know, I was talking to Mickey earlier, yesterday, and she said, it's going to go so fast, and of course it is. We got 4 minutes left. But we talk about electronic, because for those in the system, they don't understand.
During our research, we've determined that having kids in the secure detention population who are low risk to reoffend doesn't really benefit them. You know, some people think that that's quite a good punishment, but actually they're housed with other kids who might be more serious delinquents.
Yeah, teach them.
They'll teach them how to hotwire a car, and you know, what drugs are the good drugs to use. So if we can prevent the low-risk kids from being in that environment, then that's a win-win. We keep our community safe by having them on electronic monitoring, locking them down to just going to home and school and maybe religious activities if they're involved in a church. And, you know, the kid wins because now they get to stay home and play video games. The community wins because, of course, we don't have to house them in our detention center. And also, we're preventing them from learning more bad habits, ideally.
Right.
And so here in Circuit 19, we do have 10 slots available, and we've been pretty good at keeping them pretty full.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So we only have, 10 ankle bracelets?
Yes.
Wow.
I think we could get more if we utilized more, but that's about what we utilize, usually between 6 and 10.
Well, who pays for that?
The Department of Juvenile Justice pays for it. We have a contract statewide with 3M Electronic Monitoring Company, and they have a wonderful database that we can use to, you know, track where the children are every minute of the day. And so one of my responsibilities is that I review some of the concerns, the alerts that pop up to see if they are valid violations or if it's just, you know, that the kid was on the edge of their zone, or sometimes it's GPS issues. It's very technical.
Oh, no, I know.
But it's kind of neat that you can see, yep, there he is. He's walking to school. He's walking home. I can see everything. You know, we can see every place that they've been as long as they have that bracelet on. So it's pretty, actually, it's neat that the technology has brought us to this place.
Boy, the parents must be thrilled.
I think some of them are more thrilled than others.
I'm kidding. Yeah. Go ahead, Thea. I'm sorry.
I think the point in all of the reform issues, which are, you know, we're just talking about the tip of the iceberg today,
Right.
is that we're making our communities safer
Yes.
Right.
by keeping these kids out of our system.
Right, right. You know, I always pitch it as these are public safety initiatives.
Right.
That's the way you got to look at them. You know, they're not giveaway programs. They're not, you know, they are public safety initiatives.
There are sanctions that have to be followed.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. It's not a slap on the hand. And I think that might have been some of the concern at first. But in 2011, when this bill passed, it had unanimous support on both sides of the aisle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, I was a part of that. No,
Okay.
I know it was exciting. There was nobody that you know thought that it was even the most conservative people
Yeah.
we have in Tallahassee. So
And I don't hear anybody speak negatively about it at all. I think everybody's pretty supportive of the program.
well, and even you know I know law enforcement has bought into
They
it. I know
have.
they believe
They
into it.
definitely
It's
have.
just getting them used to
Exactly.
thinking about it.
Exactly.
Oh gosh, well we are almost out of time. We got about a minute left. Give me Theta in a nutshell, very quickly. This roadmap to excellence is Secretary Walters' kind of
Vision to move forward, and it
Okay.
deals with across the spectrum. Crossover youth, those kids that are in DCF custody who also act out and come into our world.
Right.
Addressing those, we are putting it together a matrix of the right service for the right youth at the right time, and implementing that in various. We started in a pilot, and we're moving to different
No, I know,
counties
right.
as we move forward.
Right.
We have some exciting things going on in the prevention world, just trying to keep at-risk kids from ever coming into the system.
Right.
We're trying to professionalize our workforce as well, so that we as an
Good for
agency
you.
can serve the kids better.
right. And we all, you know, when we take a step back, we can all look at ourselves and know that there are ways to improve. I mean, DJJ has always done great, you know, done a great job.
And since my coming into the agency, I have been amazed at the dedication of DJJ employees.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both very much. Have a great day. Thank you for traveling. Don't go back to the cold so quick, though.
Okay.
Thank you for having
Michelle.
us.
Thanks.